Okay, welcome to the node.js Diagnostic Working Group meeting, September 22, 2021. We'll follow the agenda that is slated in issue number 500. To start with, are there any announcements? I take it as a no. And the first item in the agenda is 39283, which is async hooks, multi-tenant promise hook API. Stephen is not here, so I believe we are not going to discuss this one and the next one. Basically, we'll directly go to the issue number 499, which is update cleanup profiling root folder. Raphael.
Yeah, actually, it was a draft PR, but it looked like I should close it. The question that I would like to bring here is, since most of the tutorials that we are moving to write in the documentations folder, it's pretty similar to what we already have in our official documentation or official guidelines, like simple profiling. And I think that we may overlap some things that is not necessarily right now. I mean, my suggestion is instead of create a tutorial for every path that we have mapped in our documentations folder, we firstly create a issue to track what is the missing tutorials, and then we work on that.
I think like the user journeys, like that one you pointed to is probably a subset of that journey, right? So I'm guessing more like the journey pointing to those is kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah, actually we had, let me find here. We have this issue that I will send in the chat. That is, it was created a long time ago, but we have defined the what we should have in the future, which kind of tutorials we should have.
Yep.
And for instance, I have added me at profiling, and looks like it was already created. I mean, I have created in the diagnostic repository, but it may overlap what we have right now. So I a bit confused what I am supposed to do, right? I should rewrite, or we should skip those things.
Just looking at that particular issue, because I think that table was like an earlier discussion, right? Because now we have like this documentation. I'm just looking at Node.js Diagnostics. Documentation, so we have like this one. The more recent suggestion is like drive these based on the user journey as opposed to the tool.
Yeah.
So like in this case, the profiling. So if you look there, there's a CPU one, right?
Yeah.
And I guess, well, wait a sec, there's a profiling one too. So what's the profiling?
Because as you can see inside the profiling folder, we have some steps, and one of those steps in to do is the V8 profiler, and this is already covered by Node.js official documentation.
Right. So in that case, I would say let's you know, we could just update it to point to that for now,
Yeah, okay. Yeah, makes sense.
right? Like just make that a link to, you know, there's already discussion in documentation on how to do that. And here it is, right? If we
Yeah,
think that
yeah.
documentation is the best documentation. Hmm.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
Yeah, if the problem determination experience is fully covered in the core API documentation itself, we don't need to reinvent the whole story again. But
Yep.
on the other hand, at least I have seen in some cases where API documentation is very abstract. I mean, I wouldn't say abstract, but it follows certain conventions. It cannot expand a lot just for one set of capabilities, because it has to be standardized across all the APIs. Whereas in this scenario, we might take a little step more to explain certain things in a little more consumable manner. So we have that liberty, whereas core API documentation may not have it. I'm not saying that in this case we should write everything of our own. I'm just saying the general difference.
Yeah, this is actually under the guides. Like the docs actually include a guide section, and underneath there, so those I think are fairly like whatever text. And it's maybe a place that we would end up moving the content that we develop here. Like it's, if you look here, Jarish, this is the sort of parent for where that ends up being.
Yes, exactly.
Are you looking at the PR, Raphael's PR, or the? Are you
I
sharing?
No, in the
pasted,
chat.
no, I pasted into the chat.
Okay.
You look at that last doc.
Yeah, at least for me, make more sense to update these guides or add more tutorials on it in order to solve the user journey.
Because yeah, I think, you know, once we get the user journeys to a state that, you know, we want to publish them, we were going to figure out the home, whether it was the website or this docs, like the guides in the doc might be a good place too.
Yeah, I agree.
It's interesting because there's a bunch of guides that aren't listed there that are also, you know, just more general internal guides. So I actually didn't realize that we published this as a page, which is interesting. Yeah, so I think Raphael, my suggestion would be, like, if we think that that's a good description, then, you know, just PRing a pointer to that. And, you know, we can, depending on where it goes in the end, we might like duplicate content, or if it's just ends up, we put it in the guides, then having a link to the other sections makes a lot of sense too.
Yeah, I agree. So I will take a look in most of our to-do list in the documentation, and if I found some guide, I will just point.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. So if that's all for that particular issue, we are done for the meeting, unless anybody have any other points to discuss.
Not me.
Yeah, it's only that I have here.
Okay. Thanks for joining this meeting. Talk to you in 2 weeks' time then.
Talk to everybody later.